Hello, everyone. This is MeasureCast, the data-driven way of digital marketing show. And today is actually our eighth episode already. And you can check our episodes on the channel, which is called MeasureSchool on YouTube. And we have a very interesting topic today, a little bit more technical, I would say. This is a relatively new feature introduced by Google, and it's called Google Consent Mode. So it has been actively discussed in the community, and I decided to bring this up. And we have a very special guest today, and this is a guy I really love talking to for hours about technical stuff. And this is Praba, the head of analytics at MeasureSchool. Hey there, Praba. Hi.
Hey Sophia, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm super happy to have you here. And by the way, guys, who just maybe someone doesn't know, Prabha, he is developing many tools and applications that are super cool. And maybe you could give us a sneak peek at something that you're developing right now, if I may ask, of course.
Yep, of course. I don't know whether I'm allowed to say this, but again, let me tell. So what I'm doing these days, like in GA4, using GA4 API, I'm creating a Google Apps script, basically a Google Sheet where you could go and put all your custom dimensions, custom metrics, and then click of a button, it will be created in the UI. So you don't have to just go through the UI and copy and paste one by one or create manually. It will just but click with a single button click. It will be created the custom dimensions for you. So that's the one I'm currently working on. Probably it will be ready in a couple of weeks, I believe.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to launch it soon.
This is super cool, I have to say. And Prabha, he has created multiple resources, and we are sharing those in our membership. But I also know that you're actively contributing to the development of the community, that you're being super active in forums, in chats. And I think this is truly inspiring. I just wanted to
Thanks,
say this
Sophia.
because I really admire what you're doing. But coming to today's topic, so it's a technical one. And this is why I really wanted you to be a guest because you're the person I love discussing technical stuff with. And this is Google Consent Mode. Yes, maybe not very easy to implement in some cases. And so that we are on the same page and everyone understands what this is, could you please tell us what is Google Consent Mode in a nutshell?
Yes, of course. So first of all, what I'm going to talking about today is all about the technical nuances of implementing Google Console Mode. So I'm not going to touch about the regulations like GDPR or e-privacy and whether is it good to use or bad to use. The one that we are covering, all everything is about the technical nuances. Maybe I could give some tips and share my experiences when I'm implementing those stuff in all those websites and apps. So talking about Google Consent Mode. So in a website or web app, when we have the cookie consent in place, like we are kind of restricted to collect user behavior data, right? We might see 50K users per month before we implement the cookie consent. But once we implement it, we would see a huge drop. It's natural, right?
Yeah,
I mean, not everyone gives their consent to track.
absolutely.
So Google came up with a solution. It called consent mode, where it would send cookieless pings or anonymized data to Google servers, even if the user denies the permission. So it's kind of a mechanism, not a workaround. It actually a kind of a mechanism to send data, even user is not given permissions. But these data will be kind of anonymous, as I said. Like it would actually like access the cookie storage or whatever. It would send some data without any identifiers. So what what Consumer does is it gets the user consent choice, right? Whether the user is accepting or denying the edge storage or analytic storage, so on and so forth. And it dynamically changes the behavior of the text, such as Google Analytics 4 or Google Analytics Universal or Google Ads or Floodlight text. So those texts usually create or read cookies, right?
Mhm.
So in a nutshell, if you ask, The Google consent mode restricts access to the cookie storage until user gives consent to read or write analytics or marketing cookies. But still sends anonymized pings to the Google servers. So as I said, it always anonymized. But once the user grants access, once grant the permission, it updates the text behavior, right? It updates the text behavior and starts sending the data as usual. So from the point that the user gives consent, it will send in a very traditional way, like with all those identifiers. So this is the Google consent mode in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, right? So, and this is actually a good point that we're not lawyers, and maybe if you want to implement this feature, you should consult a lawyer or a legal department, and you should also check the privacy regulations in your country because they might vary. Yes, so this is very important just to keep in mind. But talking about consent mode, so you described how it works in a nutshell, but so yeah, it's a privacy oriented, privacy safe feature, yeah, as it was introduced by Google. So this was the purpose of this feature. But maybe you could also tell me, are there any other advantages of using this solution? And would you say that this is a solution for each business or maybe just for some specific businesses? What do you think?
All right. So when it comes to adhering to the privacy regulations, like such as a GDPR or e-privacy regulations, implementing text using the traditional blocking triggers method would be still the safest option, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're using the consent mode, it would still send the pings, right? It would still send the pings to Google servers, even if the user didn't consent it. So it totally depends on what your legal team says, actually, right? Whether they would recommend to use this or not. But in a broader way, any business can use the consent mode. There is no such restriction as like as long as you have the capabilities of implementing it properly, like having a proper setup and having a proper content management platform and all. You should be able to send it. So there is no such cost or something like that. There's no such restriction, as I say. And talking about the advantages, yes, we can collect some more data, right? Even though those are anonymized. And that would help us to make business decisions, right? So more data we have, it would help us to make data-driven decisions, right? So as you know, now GA4 uses model data. And these model data is basically coming from these cookieless things, right? I believe they launched it last month, maybe, an additional identifier under user user properties, I would say, or else which is user. I think in the training you used a nice word for that one. I just forgot that. Sophia, you
I guess,
remember?
which one do you mean exactly? So this is how
Uh,
how did it
it's
selected
a
in GA4, right? Or
you did it,
property, like
yeah,
reporting
and
identity that we have, or
absolutely reporting identity. That's the word I was looking for. So under reporting identity, they added like the model data. So now we have 3 or 4 options, I believe, right? So these model data are actually coming from these cookieless things, right? And when it comes to tag management perspective, it's much cleaner to manage the tags, right? When it comes to consent mode, because we don't use any blocking triggers and so on and so forth.
yeah.
So there are many advantages to use the solution, but in the end, it's just a call of a business or the call of the legal team whether a business should use it or not. But if you ask me, just go for it and use it, but with all those precautions.
Yeah, but if we look at this question from the technical perspective, let's say, right? Because I remember when this feature was freshly implemented and I had to deal with cases with just I had to implement consent mode on my own. And I remember I was freaking out a bit because especially when it was some custom web page. Yes, so I didn't know what to do. So I had either to write some snippets of code just to be able to make it work, or I had to collaborate with the developer and explain everything. And I have to say, this was super challenging. And also, tag sequencing, it also must be respected, right? Just to make it work correctly. So, what do you think? who should implement it? So let's say if it's a small business, right? Should this be a developer, or can this be implemented by a user, someone who is using Tag Manager and Analytics and wants to implement consent mode? Is it doable, or what would you say here?
Oh, great. I just love this question because it's, again, talking about us being a developer or being a tracking specialist. So first of all, the consent mode is not responsible for displaying the cookie banners, right? Or getting the user consent. So that part has to be done by the consent management platform, or we usually call it CMP, right? So what consent mode does is it listens to the CMP sections and giving some commands to the text that supports the consent mode, as I said before, like a GA4 or Google Ads or Flatline, whatever. So the implementation is much easier if the CMP is also supporting the consent mode, right? So if it doesn't, we could still use the consent mode, but the implementation is a bit of cumbersome. So most of the time, these cookie consent banners or the CMPs are installed by the developer. So at that point, we might need the help of the developer. And the consent mode, and in the consent mode part, like configuring the consent mode triggers and everything can be taken care by the person who's managing the GTM, right? Like us. But most of the CMPs can be installed via GTM as well. As you know, right? We could use a template, or you could use a custom HTML tag. But I won't recommend this method because the reason being, if the GTM gets blocked by the ad blocker or something like that, and there are high chances that the cookie banner won't get displayed. So I always recommend to just install the cookie banner or the cookie consent by a developer by implementing that in the what we call the code base or the page template, so that the whatever CMP part will be taken care by the developer. But having said that, both the developer and the GTM implementer are responsible for the implementing the consent mode, right? For example, the default consent state, I would say, must be established first. But there's a gtech command where it says gtech default. So that has to be implemented in the page template. So even we could do it like it can be done within the GTM, but it's best if we can just do it in the code itself. So again, I would say both parties are responsible for implementing the consent mode, but the major work has to be done by the person who's responsible for the GTM. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I have to say, I'm really happy you like my questions. I prepared those. I was hoping that you would love them. And yeah, indeed, there is like this thin line between being a developer and being a tracking specialist. And you never, of course, I'm not a developer, and you have way more experience in development than I do. But anyways, there are some cases where you have to write the code because there is no other solution. It's just kind of, okay, so who am I? Kind of, yeah, and knowledge of coding actually helps here a lot. Yeah, but as I understand, here should be collaboration.
Absolutely. And when it comes to GTM implementations, working with a developer will make the life very easy. So even be it like pushing some data layer events, or maybe add some CSS, what you call classes or IDs. And right, how difficult it is like to implement something when there is nothing there in the DOM, or nothing there in the data layer. But a developer is a must, I would say. Maybe a small business or small projects won't be able to just afford developers. But again, a developer is a plus, I would say. And if you are a GTM implementer, and if you know some coding, that would be definitely help. Yeah. So in that case, both developers and the GTM like going in parallel, I would say.
Yeah, would be really without any problems. Yeah, because even you can communicate better. You can explain things better to a developer if it's something like really complex from the technical perspective. You can say, okay, so I need this and that, and communication is easier.
Yes, absolutely. So I do both, right? I do develop and I do the GTM stuff. So I can't pick which one is like more important, I would say. But again, both should work in parallel. So
Yeah.
we can create magic using that.
But, but you see how good you are because you're combination. So in your case, you don't have to call a developer. You can do everything on your own.
Yeah.
Or I can also always call you.
Yes, anytime.
And actually, so most people they're using consent mode together with G4, right, with other Google products, also such as BigQuery. So a question to you: how does it impact G4 data in G4 and in BigQuery? How is data being reported in those tools? Do you like my question?
Sophia, yes, you really like know which questions to throw, right? And I really love this question, to be honest.
I did my best.
But like I would say more than the previous question. The reason being, I would love to talk about the technical stuff, right, rather than the theory part. But this question, I believe I could uh, point some technical spec here. But anyways, uh, before we talk about the availability of data, like let's see how the cookieless pings are working. So let's take GA. I mean the universal analytics,
Mhm.
right? Or be it GA4 as well. It doesn't matter whether GA or GA4, right? Uh, if you take a look at the GA payload, right? The color call that we always check on the network tab, you would see a special parameter called GCS. So GCS stands for Google Consent State, right?
Mhm.
So the GCS parameter would contain the value of G100. So G100 will be there when the user is uh, still didn't give the consent yet. So still we are the denied mode, but still the data will be that sent to GA. So this is the data that we are talking about when it comes to cookieless ping and etc. So meaning, so G100 mean both analytic storage and storage are denied there, right?
Mhm.
So I believe the G1, when you talk about the G100, the G1 is a kind of a prefix, I believe, to the consent word, but I couldn't find any documentation on that. But I believe that that should be
Mhm.
maybe consent word version 1 or something like that. But the last two digits, like if you take G100, the last two digits, like 00, are responsible, not responsible, I would say those are kind of representing
Mhm.
two things. One is edge storage, the other one is analytic storage, respectively. Like the first zero would be edge storage, the second zero would be analytic storage. So, as you know, in a computer language, like zero means false and one means true, right? So that's the basic theory itself. So if zero, which means it's denied, one means it's granted, something like that. So once the payload is sent to GA with G100 parameter, G100 value, this hit won't display in the real-time reports, right? It could be UA or GA4. But as soon as the user gives consent, right, the new network call would be initiated automatically, right? This time, the G100 will be changed into either G101 or G111 based on the parameter, which is based on the permissions that is granted. So what it means, so G101 means the user is already given permission to the analytic storage. So G111 means the last two, one means user has given access to both edge storage and the analytic storage. So at that point only, we would send actually any identifier with that call. But here's the catch: this automatic hit that I'm talking about will be sent to Universal Analytics automatically,
Mhm.
right? So as soon as the user clicks on grant access to the analytic storage, another hit will be go to GA, this time with the G101 or 111. But when it comes to GA4, it didn't happen automatically, right? So we always have to like keep that in mind.
Mhm.
When implementing consent mode with GA4, we would need to send the page view event manually when the user gives the consent. So I don't know whether this is a bug or something like that, but I've been just working from the day that console not released in beta, but till now I've been seeing this pattern. So probably this is maybe a feature, or maybe something Google would do in future. But again, for the folks that who are doing implementation, just make sure you are sending the page view event manually
Super
until
actionable tip.
Google maybe.
Super cool.
Yeah,
I am
cool.
really
Thanks.
happy that you're sharing such knowledge.
Yes.
This
So
is amazing.
when you're doing implementation, yeah, when you are doing implementation, just make sure you are sending the page view manually, right? So that's the best way. At least till Google fixes this, or Google sends some updates on that. And talking about the availability of these data in UA reports, right? I'm talking about a Universal Analytics report.
Mm-hmm.
We won't be able to see any of these anonymous data, right? Be it what we call the real-time report, or maybe already collected reports, the aggregated reports, we won't be able to see in UA. But once the consent is given, we would see the data as usual in the reports. Like just imagine you are sending data even without the consent mode, right? Even without any consent, the data will be there as usual. It's same in the BigQuery export also, right? No anonymous data will be there, but the real data, once the data that collected after granting those access consent will be there. So it's business as usual there.
Okay.
Right. So so far we discussed about UA. So it's kind of a confusing. I know. So is it clear so far? I've just asked
It
that
is
for
clear
a
for
second
sure. Yeah, it
explanation.
is clear.
Cool. Because I need to kind of segment this, because we are talking about BigQuery, and we are talking about GA, real-time report, and collected data, and so on and so forth. So now I'm gonna discuss about GA4 data. So this is your actual question, right? You're asking about GA4, but I'll be talking
And I
about
think
US. But again, it will be useful, I believe, right?
yeah, it's
All
good
right,
to
Sophia.
know. Yeah, because we
So
have to yeah, we have to understand how it works. Yeah, so starting with UA because it's still being used, then we're going to migrate to G4. So just so that we can also have the logic behind it. So I think it was explained in super clear way.
absolutely, thanks, Sophia. So now let's talk about. Let me answer the real question, right? The actual questions, GA4 data. So same here. So we won't be able to see any cookieless pings in the real-time reports, right? If we go to be it the real-time or be it the debug mode, we won't be able to see that cookieless pings. However, now in GA4, as I covered this before, we can see the model data that was generated using these cookieless pings, right? As I mentioned before, we can still see that. But the catch again, this will be not available in all those properties, as far as I know. There are some criteria that that the property must be made first in order to see that data. Just correct me if I'm wrong. That's the case, I believe, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yeah. I maybe it's under user identity, I believe. And let's talk about this one. So once the consent is granted, we would see an event called user engagement, underscore engagement in the real-time report. So usually we would see, I believe it's session start and first visit, but and then the page view. But now we would see an event called user engagement in the real-time report, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it will be shown in the debug mode as well if you're debugging. And from that point onwards, all these subsequent events will be displayed as usual, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is I'm talking about when the consent is granted, right? And this is about the GA4 reporting.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me cover the BigQuery one. So in GA4 BigQuery export, the cookieless hits won't be available in the intraday table. So as you know, there are two tables. One would be the daily table. The other one is the intraday table, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you configured streaming data, those data will be there in the intraday table. But the cookieless pings will not be there in the intraday table. But the daily table would have all those hits, right? So whatever hits that been collected be it a cookieless or be it the granted one, it will be there without any user pseudo IDs. So it's again, it's a what you call an anonymized data. So it will be there, right? And so far, we are talking about the user hasn't given consent, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I made a mistake earlier. So I'm still talking about user hasn't given any consent yet when it comes to BigQuery, right?
Yeah. Yeah, correct.
Right. Now, let me come back to the scenario where user gives the consent. So the intraday table would have all those events in the sense from the user engagement event point, right? As soon as user gives the consent, there will be an event called user engagement, and that will be there in the BigQuery, and also all the subsequent hits will be there, right? And in the daily table, right, you would see all those hits during the session, before or after granting those analytic consents, analytic storage consent. So, in a nutshell, in the daily table, you would still see those data, right? But this time, you will be able to see with pseudo ID. So, this is how the GA4 reporting and BigQuery reporting are kind of work at the moment. But maybe this is not clear to explain well enough. But I saw an article from Edsworth, right, where Charles Farinas. This has been written by one of the data engineers at Edsworth. So, which is very a nice article. There's a nice table with all those information in detail. Maybe we could share the link if that's okay, Sophia.
Yeah,
What do you
sure.
say?
Yeah, I'll make sure I attach a link to this video so everyone can check the article because I love those guys. They're super cool. They're just the knowledge they have. It's like the stars of measurements.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I'll make sure I send you the link. So please have it in the description so that our viewers will be able to just go through and learn in detail what we covered so far.
Yeah, sure. And actually, a question. Yeah, like, I'm so happy you're here because you can share your wisdom, your knowledge, and you're always so busy working with implementation, with projects. And I'm so happy we managed to record this so that you can share those actionable tips with other people. And this is really cool. Just a question, not about consent mode this time, but since you were talking about BigQuery in such a passionate way, what are the advantages of using this tool? Maybe just your opinion. Would you also recommend it for every business or because now, as you know, the integration is kind of free for GA4 and this is definitely a leap forward. So this is a super cool, great opportunity, I would say, for all people. Yeah, so that they can start using this tool. You don't have to pay for this linking anymore. So what are the advantages of having it?
Oh, nice question. And again, it's about BigQuery. BigQuery is my one of my favorite too, right? Purely, it's blazingly fast, right? We could and use analyze data of terabytes of data within couple of seconds. Talking about GA4 data in BigQuery, I would recommend this to anyone, whether they are analyzing data on BigQuery or not. As soon as you implement GA4, just start connecting, just link the GA4 property with a BigQuery. Because the reason being, in future, if you decide to analyze data using BigQuery, you will be at that point you would be already miss the historic data because there is no way we could backfill. So it will be the BigQuery will have from the date or from the moment that we connect the GA4 property. So I would recommend to just connect it.
Another
And
actionable tip.
the
Sorry for
other
interrupting. There's another actionable tip that is just for everyone. So
yes, in every forum I would say this because I've been seeing people coming back to me and ask, we couldn't see the past data. We would love to analyze data using BigQuery, but is there any way we could just backfill? But unfortunately, there is no way in GA4 data. But if you are using the GA360 Universal Analytics and the GA360, it has the backfilling option. But again, now we are talking about GA4, and we don't have a solution at the moment. There could be solutions like we can just export the past data from analytics and manually import it to the BigQuery. But again, that data will not be a raw data. And again, talking about the advantage, the data sent to BigQuery from the GA4 are raw data, right? So raw data is like there is no modeling at all. We have the raw data, and we could do a lot of things using this raw data. We could create our own attribution model, or we could use it for machine learning, or we could do it prediction modeling, and we could use BigQuery ML. So we can do so many things, right? So that's the best part of having the raw data in BigQuery. So like I said, it's fast, and also it has so many features that we can leverage off. And another thing like I would like to tell here, since we talk about user IDs and user properties, let's say we are sending some data to GA when the user logs into the site. So so obviously we don't set the user ID as something like Sofiia at 123 or something like that, right? We always send some unique, because if you're sending the names, those will be captured under PIA, personally identified information. So which is not allowed.
Another action.
So we are always yes, we are not allowed to send PI data. And this is another good point. Granted that we are using BigQuery, we are still not allowed to send data to BigQuery through GA, right? But in BigQuery, we can have the personal PIA data. The reason being the data in BigQuery is owned by us, right? Google won't be able to access the data. So it's our data. So we can have the personal identified information there, but we cannot send it through GA, right? So that's a point here. So coming back to the topic, let's say there's a user ID as maybe SO123, so which represents Sofiia. But by looking at the raw data, we don't know whether that's Sofiia or someone else with a similar user ID. But let's say in our CRM system, we have all those information. So we have a column with the user ID, and we have a column with the name, and we have the column with the email, and so on and so forth. Now we want to enrich our data. Like I'm doing analysis, and I want to see who this user is actually. So at that point, I would be able to just join these two tables. Maybe the CRM data already there in the BigQuery, or maybe it would be there in some other database like RDS or something like that in AWS. So we could always connect those data, and we could import that into BigQuery, and we could analyze that rate, right? So at this point, I would be able to just take these user IDs and mesh those user IDs with my CRM data. And I could easily identify, okay, this is the user. So SO123 belongs to Sofiia. So likewise, so there are so many potential when we are when we are talking about BigQuery. There are so many things we could talk about, and if I start talking about the advantages, we might have to have a dedicated session for it. Maybe a later one, I would say. But for now,
great
I believe these are the advantages, I would say.
Oh, this is actually a great idea to create, just to arrange the next session, just dedicated to BigQuery. Yeah. So thank you so much, by the way. So you're giving me some ideas. This is great. And you have such an outstanding path behind you. So you have gained this expertise, and you can share your experience, because I cannot say I'm proficient with BigQuery. So I'm not really good at it, but I really want to learn. So how can you learn this tool from scratch? Maybe you could share your experience, because in this way other people can have some shortcuts in a way, so that they know how to spend so much time just looking for proper resources. Maybe you could give some tips here as well.
Yes, I would love to. So first of all, talking about BigQuery, how to learn BigQuery, I would say first step should be start learning SQL or SQL, right? So SQL is the language that we use in BigQuery to analyze data. So first thing first, we should start learning SQL. So there are so many materials out there in the YouTube and so many courses out there in Udemy and all.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing, just go there and grab a course and just start learning SQL. And then not only learning that, you should start applying that, right? Apply, like do some practicals, you do some
Absolutely.
assessments and all. Start using that in your test data or dummy data or something like that. So once you're confident enough, or not that way, once you know like this is how the SQL works,
Mm-hmm.
you could always jump into BigQuery, right? Because when it comes to BigQuery, there are certain features which might be different, but again, it's a tool, right?
Yeah.
Once you start using it, you would get used to it, and then later on, you will be able to just understand the features of BigQuery and you can utilize those. But at that point, at the beginning itself, you should be able to write the same SQL query in BigQuery and you could start analyzing data, right? Now, if you think you don't have data to analyze, there is always a sample data available, which is provided by Google, where we could get the sample data. You just do a Google and it will give the link to the data source so that you can connect it and use it. And if you're talking about the cost, to try it out, there is no cost at all. So BigQuery gives a service called BigQuery Sandbox, which is free to try
Oh,
it out, right? So you could start using it. And so, like I said, go for a SQL course and just start practicing it. And in the meantime, just go through the BigQuery documentation, which is it's a very comprehensive tool, I would say, very comprehensive documentation compared to GA or GT or whatever, which has all the sample queries and they give some sample data as well. So, which is a great source. And if you like facing any issues, just Google it. There are a lot of resources out there in Stack Overflow, and you could come up with answer. Maybe like I've seen like answers which have been given in 2010 even 2010 12, not related to BigQuery, maybe which is
yeah.
related to SQL. But again, we are talking about SQL here, right?
Yeah.
So you could get the answer. And the other place I would say is MeasureSlack, where if you go to measure.slack or measureslack.talk, I believe. I just forgot the URL. But we should be able to just have it in the description maybe so that people could join. It's just a great community where all those experts are there, right?
Yeah.
So let's say if someone comes in and posts something, a real world question, there are so many people who would help them, right? And then the best part is not only the person who posted those questions will learn something new, but everyone in the group, right? You could go through there and see those questions and see those answers. You can replicate those in your own environment and you can try it out. And you could share your own answers as well. Um, just don't afraid of being the wrong answer or something like that. If you're wrong, somebody will correct you. So in that way, we could learn something new. So that's how I keep learning stuff, right? I just go there and put some answers that I know, and somebody will come and correct if I'm wrong. So that at that point, I learn something. So that is another great resource anybody should use. And talking about the BigQuery courses itself, uh, there are a couple of in the market. SEMO has a great course, and in our measurement, sorry, MeasureSchool membership,
Yeah. We
there's
do
a
have.
dedicated course which done by Julian. And I don't know whether I'm supposed to say this, but I'm also working on the BigQuery course, kind of addition to what we have at the moment. It would have dedicated for the GA4, analyzing GA4 data. I'm just working on it. Probably it will be ready by end of September, maybe. I'm just hoping to do that. So
Well,
sorry,
you're
Sophia,
revealing some secrets here.
but again, I just thought of sharing. Maybe we could just cut it off in a minute,
No,
but I hope
it's fine.
it's cool, right? All right. Cool. So these are the points. These are not points. I would say these are the tips I would be able to just give it to you if you want to learn SQL or BigQuery and start start enjoying BigQuery. Yeah. Did I answer your question, Sophia?
Yeah, thank you. And I have to say that MeasureSlack, it's my favorite source of knowledge, I would say, because there are so many truly inspiring people there. Those people who I look up to, and it's a great way that you can even talk to them, right? And you can also work with real life cases, not the theory, but you can deal with real life problems. And it's not only about BigQuery, but about any topics in the world of measurement. Also, if you have questions related to consent mode, this is a great way to learn. And coming back to the topic of consent mode, unfortunately, this is already the end of the session. I could talk to you about technical stuff for ages because it's always fun. But just maybe you could provide a short summary just of what we were discussing today about consent mode. Yeah, just maybe some tips or just your wrap up.
Yep, sure. So let me summarize in this way, right? So the Google Consent Mode is a great solution just to recover some of the missing data, right? But again, the consent mode will help us to send the cookieless pings to the GA4 or Google Lens or Floodlight or whatever that supports Google Consent Mode. But again, this would be useful to use machine learning and fill those missing pieces, right? So we have some kind of a data which might be somewhat closer to the reality, right? And then what cookie consent would do is once the user gives the permission, it updates all those text behavior, right, and starts sending the data as usual. So this is the best part of consent mode, right? And we already talked about some of technical nuances. I could just briefly explain here. As I said, when you're implementing consent mode, like in GA4, GA4 won't send the page view event once a consent is granted, right? So we have to send it manually. So this is one point I would like to tell you guys. So always just see whether you are sending those data, the page view event manually. If not, just do it until Google comes with a fix or something like that. Also, these cookieless pings or the cookieless hits we send to Universal Analytics will not be available any of the reports, right? So in GA, you would see the model data, but in UA, you won't be able to see any of these reports. And we briefly talk about some advantages of BigQuery as well. So I'm not going to cover it here. Maybe once you go through the video, you would be able to just learn those stuff. And yeah, so those are the major ones that we covered today.
Thank you so much, Prabha, for those actionable tips you have shared. I'm really grateful to
My
you for your
pleasure.
time, and I really love talking to you. And we have arrived at the end of this session. So thank you everybody for staying with us. And actually, if you want to learn how to implement consent mode, Julian is showing this in this video right here. So if you like this video, please give a thumbs up and see you next time. Bye.